All right, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Fans. I'm your host, Tim Solberg, and today I want to do something a little bit different. Yes, I'm going to stay with true crime. We're going to talk about the Bryan Kohberger case, but we're not going to make this a focus on Bryan Kohberger. As a matter of fact, we're going to take a look at his current public defender, Ann Taylor. Now, here's some of the things that we know of Ann Taylor so far. One, she was relatively unknown before the Bryan Kohberger case, okay? So we do know that Ann Taylor is the chief public defender for Kootenai County. Prior to that, she worked for Kootenai County as a public defender, and prior to that, she had her own practice with two partners. Now, we also know that Ann Taylor did represent Xana Kernodle's mom at one point, which her mom was been very public in the fact that she doesn't think that Ann Taylor should represent Bryan Kohberger, and that she was disappointed that that was happening and felt betrayed. So that's all stuff that you can find in the media. Now, the reason I wanted to do this video is I want to talk a little bit about Ann Taylor and kind of pick apart why she wanted to do this case. Now, if you read some of the stuff that's in the news, especially when she got her promotion to chief public defender for Kootenai County, she does talk about that everybody deserves a good defense, right? And I think that that's important to note, because I think that there's some motivating factors here, but I think that goodwill, I think, plays a factor in this as well. I think that obviously most of us felt a little bit of emotions when we heard that she was connected to Xana Kernodle's mom. And I think most of us felt like that was a conflict of interest. And I think that for some of us, specifically me, I think it took me a little while to understand why maybe Ann Taylor decided to take this case. And I think it's a tale of two stories. So let me start with the first one. The first one would be not assuming good intent in Ann Taylor. And it's the simple fact that Ann Taylor wants to get her name out there. So depending on how this case goes, especially if Bryan Kohberger is found innocent, Ann Taylor will be a household name and would be able to start up her own practice again or take on some partners, and would probably be sought after by just about everybody in the United States for any tough cases. Now, that would be, in a nutshell, enough for anybody to want to take this case on, and that would also be for personal gain. Okay, now the second road that we would go down would be kind of tying back to some of the things that we've seen in the news with her, specifically when she got promoted in 2017, where she highlights the fact that everybody deserves a good defense. Now, in her perspective or her position, she's the chief public defender, right? Which would tell me that she's earned that status and has probably had some good cases in the past. And maybe she felt like she needed to take that on because of how high profile this case is. Now, she is going to have help from Masseth, which is certified to take on death penalty cases, which is going to be very important for this case. So she will have a second hand on this, which is warranted, especially for the serious nature. But I think for her, and what I want to believe, is that she did it because she is the chief and because of how high profile the case is. Now, we're not going to know this until the end. We're not going to know until this case is over whether Bryan Kohberger is found innocent, whether Bryan Kohberger is found guilty, or whether Bryan Kohberger makes a plea deal. Any one of those three things could happen, and there's other things that could happen in between. I'd be curious to see what happens with Ann Taylor. Does she stay in the position that she stays in, or does she go towards private practice, and then does she become somewhat of a celebrity overnight, right? Maybe for all the wrong reasons, but it is something that is a possibility. And I want to hear from you folks. Why do you think that she took on the role of lead defender for Bryan Kohberger in this case? Do you think that it was a little bit more devious, where it was going to be personal gain in the future? Or do you think she did it because it was her duty as chief public defender in Kootenai County? And I'm curious to hear how and what you think from this perspective. You know, the other thing that I find interesting is that she is putting a lot of effort into the defense of this case. So by all means, I think that some of the chess moves that she's making, I don't know if it's at the request of Mr. Kohberger, like having subpoenas for people to testify, specifically some of the victims that were in the house that survived, i.e. Dylan, that may have seen Mr. Kohberger, to getting more information from the grand jury, to just not having the house demolished, all of these things that, I think a good defense attorney would do. She's taken it very seriously, and I wonder if that is going to lead to either a better plea deal, if Mr. Bryan Kohberger wants to plea out at some point, or if it would lead to an innocent verdict, or if it would take the death penalty off the table. I don't know what the motive is behind it, and I don't know how much of this is a driving force from Bryan Kohberger, but I would be curious to see, and then I would be curious to see how this plays in the overall career of Ann Taylor, as this is a very high-profile case that a lot of people are watching. So based off of that note, that's all I've got for you. Very short video on this. I want to hear from you. Why do you think Ann Taylor took on this case? Do you think it was for good reasons? Do you think it was for personal gain? And what do you think she's going to get out of this? And then furthermore, do you think that this actually hurts her career because of such a high-profile case that she's taken on? That being said, have a wonderful week, everybody.